Taught this a while back, but it's kind of a newer way to look at it, and it's just kind of something I think is super important I'm seeing right now. And we're just going to talk about getting good at understanding and writing copy.
Hey, this is Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
Text or email, okay, what would that be? This is selling, right, through text. And that's going to be what? Written word in that scenario. And the specifics going to be copywriting. Because why am I teaching on this? Most people's copywriting is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And so what you don't realize is that people are judging you on how you write, how you communicate. And right now, the problem with this and why it's such a big difference is there's a lot of noise. What do you think that means right now? There's a lot of noise. Yes, what else? News, fear, social media, right? We got the Russia war, the Ukraine war. They're talking about nuclear war. We got energy prices going up, election issues, right? More diseases and things, well, all kind of stuff, right? Just constant noise, which has been ramped up. PayPal fined you $2,500 for misinformation, right? All these things are coming in from these agendas all at once, and it creates a lot of noise for people. And so what's that make it harder for you to do? Operate, what else? Get your signal. It's harder for you to be heard right now than ever. Than any time in history. Why? Because there's so much information coming to people all the time, all day, every day. If you look at most people's screen time on their phone, it's like 6 to 8 hours a day. And so if you understand that, how much are they consuming in terms of information as a human in that 6 to 8 hours? And so right now, the most profitable skill set you can have, which is a part of sales, is copywriting. And it's a great reminder for me to go back through this. We were talking with this guy who was part of Warrior with us. He's a really good buddy, but he's very sharp at this. And so we just talk about, you guys, everything you do right now needs to have the structure to get seen and get read. This could be from a price reduction email to a seller. This could be your buyer information, buyer intro email. This could be a video email to your buyer. This could be information to your client about making an offer, anything here. We got to make sure that one, it gets seen, it gets read, it gets consumed, and they take an action on it. Very, very important, okay? And so there's very, very important things here that you guys understand. The thing to remember here about this overall copywriting, it's a learned skill. Nobody has this naturally. It's a way to teach your brain how to think. It's a way to teach your brain how to think. What do you think that means? The ability to sell through words is so important face-to-face, but for me to be able to get face-to-face, I got to be very good at this part right here. Because I'm not going to get everybody on the phone. I'm not going to be able to get face-to-face to everybody immediately. And so I want to get good at both being on the phone and then using the word to help get face-to-face and help close the sale. Okay, and so let's go over some structure things I think they're important for you guys to understand. You really need three main parts. Number one is the hook. And this is important. I teach all the time with our weekly emails out, which is very important. Second piece we have here in anything is the story. Third piece here is the offer. I want you guys to keep this structure and keep this your notes for everything you do. Every single piece of communication you send to any client you want to use this in. Right? There's a hook part. What's the hook designed to do, you think? Stop there, get their attention. That's it. Right? There's two ways to do this. And here, this is true for your emails to your clients. Where else is it true at? Text to your clients. What else? Facebook, your social media posts. The better you get at this, the more effective it's going to be on the back end for sure, which is super important, right? So that's something that's important for us to be in here in that. So 2 types of hook. Number 1 hook is going to be a headline. It needs to be sexy, needs to get their attention. Most people don't understand this. They don't think through from a psychological way of getting the people and understand, look, there's so much noise out right there. How do I get this person to stop what they're doing and actually read this? The only goal of this headline here is to stop them in their tracks and get them to read that part. Second way to do this here is through a picture. This could be where? My social media. So we talk about this all the time. You guys do great stuff with your congratulations to your clients. And you usually take a picture of what usually? The house, the property, and just put like a sold or something on it. What do you think would be more powerful than that? What who? Them. The actual client. What's more believable? A bunch of houses closed or the actual people who bought the house? People that bought the house. Everybody agree on that? Guess what nobody does? I don't know why. Maybe because it's an extra step, but you got to understand what's a better hook. So you want to understand everything you do, you want to think through hooks. What's the best hook I can have? How do I be a better hooker? Right? Very important place to look at in that scenario is like, hey, look, how do I become a better hooker to my people? So reading it from my social media, from me having on my social media, so when my client looks me up online and they scan my profile, are they going to stop and look at that and make sure it looks legit? If I have just a bunch of houses on there that says, hey, congratulations, John and Mary, what do they think? But if I see John and Mary smiling with you at the closing table, or even them at the closing table, and your story along with that house, what do I think? That's legit, right? So make sure you understand the power of how much more important your hook is there to that in that scenario, right? And here's the thing. The most important thing you can have is a great hook. Why? They're not going to read it. So you can have a sales copy below that, but if you have a great hook, you're actually going to sell some stuff. Why? Because it's just numbers game, where if I have a better hook, more people are going to stop and read it, and then therefore they're maybe going to like what I have at the end to offer. That'd be their agents, write an offer, do a price reduction, whatever it is important, right? So the hook is the single most important part of the process. One of the biggest mistakes people make, what do you think one of the biggest mistakes people make in the hook is? It cannot be anything about what? You. What's the other big mistake they make? Yes, they try to sell on the hook. You can never sell on the hook. Why? Yeah, it's got to be out there. It's not selling. Because I see a sales type subject. What do I think? I ain't messing with this. I get 40 of them a day. Right? One of the guys went through an example. He talked about he had this huge list, this great product that came out, and his subject line was like how I went from a trailer park something to success in life and all this, and it didn't sell anything. And the reason was he talked about who? Himself, and he also sold in the subject line, which is why no one bought. And then he changed it to, hey, do you want a better life in X, Y, Z? And all of a sudden, guess what happened? He started converting 500% higher. A 5x increase because just the change in the subject line. And so that's the same thing we want to understand when I'm sending stuff to my people in my bucket, when I'm sending a video to people in my bucket. All these things matter in that scenario. And so that's super important. So there's something I want you guys to remember and write down. It's called SAP, S-A-P. This has to do with the hook. SAP. First part, stop the scroll. What does that mean? Stop the scroll. This is the key part that my headline has to do. Yeah, people are getting really good. You can tell. Yep, right? Like single mom eaten by a bear or whatever it is, right? And you're like, man, I got to check this out, right? And so you've got to have something that stops the scroll. And who's scrolling? Your clients are scrolling on their email. I get 400 plus emails a day. I don't open hardly any of them, but I do the ones that make sense, and I always read what first? The subject to see if it's worth me doing that. And so it's got to stop them in the tracks. And so use this as your overall framework to do that. It's super important. Second piece is I need to arouse curiosity. I want to be curious about what happens at the end, so I need to make sure that I'm able to arouse curiosity in my sentence of what that is. And so I know that there's so much noise right now in the marketplace that I've got to find a way for me to be able to stop the scroll. Okay? This is important because you're not going to get everybody on the phones. You want to get good at your text messages getting responded to. You want to get good at your emails getting responded to. You want to get good at the videos you see them to get open and get viewed. Very important. So how do I get good at arousing the curiosity in how I write? There are certain frameworks you're going to use to get that. Right? Super important. One of the best subjects I saw recently somebody shared was how to make money online even if you hate people. Pretty good, right? You're like, that's it. And what is it doing? It's talking to a very specific avatar, and it just talks about, hey, look, here's how they're able to do this, and it makes them very curious about that, especially if they're in a place where they don't like people. Third piece of this, pre-frame what is next, right? Single mom gets attacked by a bear, you're not going to believe what happened, right? Whatever it is. And that's pre-framing what? What happens in the whole scenario with the bear, whatever it is. Those are types of things that you want to do to what? Understand to stop their track, arouse curiosity, get them to open it. The only goal I have here for them is to do what? Open it up. Stop and open. I want to stop them from scrolling. Right? I want to stop them for what they're doing, stop them in their tracks, get them to consume what I'm doing here. Very, very important piece there. So the SAP piece is important. right? Very, very important piece for us to understand, right? Most make the mistake we talked about, talking about themselves, their product. Here's the deal. People don't care about you or your product yet. They care about what? Themselves. We talked about this before, right? There's this understanding of what an avatar is. And people listen to this one station. We talk about this in our training, our success school. They listen to one station. What is it? Kind of. What's in it for me, right? So you have this person here. They're listening to one station, right? All they care about is what? Themselves and what's in it for them in that process. And so me as a salesperson, I have to be very good at understanding, okay, how do I get very dialed into who my people are and really to my people and what their avatar is? Which I talked about on the previous page up here, because the better I understand the avatar, the better I understand my people, okay? And there's two types of people think about, if I can get it better colored, that they're really looking at and understanding. So people have two things. They have surface level problems that they're thinking about at all times up here. Those are things they do, like go to Google. Surface level problem is like, how do I stop my baby from crying? Right? Home real estate in Myrtle Beach. And so those are things that are on their conscious mind. They're thinking about it because it's actually a problem. They're seeking out a solution. So I want to understand what those are. Same thing. How do I sell my house in today's marketplace? What's my home worth? How do I pick a real estate agent? Whatever that is, that's important for me to understand what the avatar is. If I'm a real estate agent, hey, how do I get in real estate and survive? How do I have success in real estate? Whatever it is. The second part is the underlying, the subconscious problem, which are things like on Facebook or emails that we send, which talks about the problem, and all of a sudden they see it, and what happens? They're like, oh, that's kind of like what I had, the problem I was thinking about. Let me look more into that, and they click it. I see it all the time. Now there's like how to make your baby smart, how to make your baby walk early and crawl early. What all these things you start seeing now for me popping up on my Facebook, because obviously I know that we have a baby, right? So it's important that I didn't really think about seeking that out, but all of a sudden underlying I was thinking about that, and it tended to really go into my radar here, my avatar, and dial that in. And so I need to get better understanding what? The conversation that's going on in the head of who? Client. My prospect or my client, right? And so you want to be dialed into this very, 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 tightly, you say, on what they're thinking. Now, to do that, I have to take some time and sit back and think about what my client's actually thinking about. The beliefs they have, the problems they have, the pain they have, the stories they have, the conversation in their mind. The better I can get into their conversation they're having in their subconscious mind, the more influence I'm going to have over that person, and the better my copywriting is going to be to help get them in that scenario. You guys with me on that? The story piece here. What do you think's in that? This needs to be a compelling story that they want to read about, and I have to find a way to tie that to whatever I'm doing. So I want to talk about what in that scenario? Third-party stories, examples, horror stories, things like that really matter in that scenario, which is super important. Are you guys with me on that? Very, very, very important piece here. And this just takes a lot of doing really the practice piece where I can learn this skill over and over and over.